one of the great benefits of having Mark Kisla up in Fort Collins, and he'll be sitting out this segment, is I guess we get Jimi Hendrix in more than one section of the show. Jake knows what I like. Kiss keeps trying to bring the show into the modern era of music. Fat chance, right? All right, it's time for, we do it every week at 8:42 if we can, Rockin Company's Rockin CU with Adam Munsterteiger, editor and publisher of BuffStampede.com. Must reading, follow Adam at AdamCM777. Rockin Company, making Colorado beautiful, natural stone construction for 5 decades. Rockin Co., proud CU alums and fans. Rockin Co., RockinCompany.com. Framed Art, framers to the pros. Bradley, Roby, Champ Bailey, DeMarcus Ware. More than 20 jerseys for the legendary Rod Smith. Ronald, don't call me Ron Leary, and others, and the colleges in town. Everyone gets their sports memorabilia framed at Framed Art, 3065 South Broadway. Congratulations to Brian Hart, all the awards that they continue to win. And we welcome in, good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Michael.
We've got 7 days and one more game to go. Colorado State today hosting frequent CU opponent Oregon State. But this is our only show before the Rocky Mountain Showdown next Friday night, where you and I will be there, along with Kiz, I'm sure. He goes every year. And so this is our big opportunity to break that game down and get on the record and make a prediction. I've got my score. I want to hear how you break it down.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think obviously it's going to be a little bit easier to break down this matchup later today after we see CSU play another Pac-12 team. Certainly the main expectation for this year's Rocky Mountain Showdown is that I think we assume it's going to be a shootout. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this football game. I noticed the over-under's already set at 63, and frankly, I think that's a little bit low. I think assuming the Rams don't get blown out by Oregon State later today, I think this is going to be maybe a 2-score game. I guess my prediction, as things stand right now, would be something like CU 42, CSU 31. And again, I think getting a chance to see the Rams play, I've done a little bit less research on them up to this point, just kind of knowing that I get a chance to eyeball some of their personnel later today. So anxious to tune into that game. I think one thing you got to keep in mind is that even though CU's beaten the Rams in consecutive years 5 times in the last 20 years, they haven't blown them out in back-to-back years. So usually this is a series where if one team really gets the best of the other, well, you get at least a more competitive game the next year. So that's just kind of how the historical trend has worked with this series.
So I'm writing you down, and I realize this could change when you see Colorado State play today, and I expect them to win, to beat Oregon State in a close one, closer than my partner thinks. But so I've got you down for 42-31 with an asterisk there. When I break it down, I look at it and I agree with you. Both teams can score. I think the Rams have a very potent pass-run game. I don't think they've ever had a deeper core of better running backs up there than they have now, and that might be true of their receivers as well. I think they can take advantage of Colorado's new defensive line. The biggest difference between in every team, the cliche goes, is between the first and second game, when guys get out on the field, work out the kinks, and no longer playing against themselves. And I think that will be an advantage for Colorado State here. So I do see a close game. I see Colorado State is a 6.5-point underdog. I see them creeping within that number. I've got Colorado 33, Colorado State 27. I looked at that 63, and I wanted to go over, and I just felt like, wow, it's the first game of the year. It could be difficult. I've only got them scoring 60 points. I think if there's an edge for Colorado, I'll take Phillip Lindsay and his quality over that deep core of Colorado State running backs. Phillip and his explosiveness. I'll tell you what, both teams both teams' pass receiving core are a joy to watch.
Yeah, they really are. Michael Gallup, of course. You've really kept on that you think this is an advantage for CSU getting to play a game earlier. Mike McIntyre agrees with you. I do think, though, if there is an advantage there, it's going to have to be taken advantage of by CSU in the first half. I think that the fact that CSU only gets 6 days of rest after playing a Pac-12 team, that's pretty physical with Ryan Nall that's going to ground and pound today. So yeah, I think with CU then, getting that scouting advantage, that might actually benefit them in the second half of the Rocky Mountain Showdown. So if CSU is going to take advantage of having that first game, they're going to have to do it early.
Well, you make a good point. How beat up are you? Come back after 6 days and play your arch rival after the huge emotion you've already expended on the season opener, on the opener of an entire new era with a new stadium. How can you get up again in 6 days, and how sore will you be? Those are all questions for Colorado State, but they should at least have their units in good working order and tested coming into against Colorado, because they're not playing a patsy either, as you mentioned. Looking at, we asked the question earlier, how much does the new stadium help Colorado State? Does it put them in the running in terms of battling Colorado for supremacy in football in this state?
Well, for that to take hold, I think that CSU fan base has got to, once the excitement of the newness factor with this stadium wears off, you still got to support that football team. I mean, even from a financial standpoint, for them to be able to pay that thing off. Proven, and not to say that CU fans haven't been fickle at times as well in terms of attendance and support. So I think it's something that CSU is going to have to show they can really sustain that support over the amount of years versus just right now when it's fresh and it's exciting and then everybody is happy about it being back on campus. They got to do that long term. They haven't done that in the past.
One more item I meant to get to. I'm out of order here, but which is not uncommon. Drew Lewis, inside linebacker, is going to be starting, it looks like. Or is he going to be starting next to or in place of Gamboa? And will Gamboa, who helped anchor those linebackers last year, will he be able to play against Colorado State?
Yeah, well, Gamboa has been banged up a little bit this preseason, but from what I understand, it's more precautionary than anything. Yeah, he's their starting middle linebacker. He's the quarterback of the defense, and then where Drew Lewis does factor in, and he is a starter. He's a starter in that jack linebacker role that Kenneth Olobode played before. So you'll see both those guys out on the field pretty much all the time, as long as they can stay with it conditioning-wise, just because the depth at inside linebacker is really young behind those two guys. And we've heard Mike McIntyre say he's been really pleased with Jonathan Van Diest and Nate Landman, the two true freshmen, even Akil Jones, a redshirt freshman inside linebacker, has gotten better. But those guys don't have the experience, and that's one position where it's really hard to come in there as a young guy and play well. They don't really have much of a choice, just the depth. You look across the roster, and Colorado's done a pretty good job of kind of cultivating some depth, but inside linebacker just isn't one of them. So, yeah, those two guys will be out on the field quite a bit. And Drew Lewis has had an up-and-down camp. He might be one of the guys to really key in on next Friday, because we've heard him have some really good days of practice with his athleticism and other days where he's not quite as focused and has made some mistakes out there. So that's definitely a big question mark.
And he will be challenged with a terrific running game that Colorado State should have this year. So those inside guys like Olabode was not a big guy. He was an athletic guy, but he was there. He was always there to make the tackle. He was in the right spot at the right time, generally. A guy I'm intrigued by coming into this season, then we'll switch gears a little bit. I call him Mr. Duct Tape, George Frazier. Is there anything on the field except maybe quarterback? George Frazier doesn't play, and where do you expect to see him this year?
Well, I talked to Jim Jeffcoat, the defensive line coach, and he said he expects to have George Frazier out there in their D-line rotation for about 15 to 20 snaps a game. And then, yeah, he's kind of a utility guy offensively. You'll see him in there in short yardage situations. He can play fullback, H-back, tight end. To your point of his versatility, he will play on special teams. Now, you'd love to see George have kind of a redemption senior season. He had a couple really costly drops from last year. So offensively, he's shown his second year on campus, he was kind of a playmaker offensively and just has kind of fallen out of being able to do that on a consistent basis. So you'd like to see a little bit more out of that. Defensively, I think he's pretty solid. We saw him as a redshirt freshman play some defensive line, and he made some plays there. So about 6 guys on that D-line you're going to see rotate, and he's going to be one of them.
Well, good for George. Hope he gets as many snaps as he can his senior year. More solemn news, Dave Platty's press release yesterday announcing that Colorado will appropriately retire the number 19 of the great Heisman Trophy winning late running back for University of Colorado, Rashawn Salam.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, even if it wasn't for his unfortunate death, I think he's the only Heisman Trophy winner in goal history, so I definitely think it's well deserved. And Michael Atkins is going to wear number 19 actually this year, so he'll be the last guy to do that.
Wow. And we expect big things from Michael Atkins actually this year, finally to live up to the potential we both talked about on this show and glimpsed when he came in as a freshman. We're towards the end here, but tell us about BuffStampede.com.
Yeah, we've thrown up some great interviews in recent days with Lyle Tuiloma, Philip Lindsay, Ryan Muller, each with a unique story in terms of the adversity they faced. So definitely check out BuffStampede.com.
All right. Hey, thank you, Adam. We'll talk next week and next Saturday after the big game Friday night.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. That is Rockin Company's Rockin CU with Adam Munsterteiger, BuffStampede.com. Rockin Company, making Colorado beautiful, natural stone construction for 5 decades, and framed art, framer to the pros and the colleges in town. Brian Hart's Place, 3065 South Broadway.